Hi, my name's Jo Hadley, and this is my podcast, Being a Human Lighthouse. There are loads of great podcasts and books, YouTube videos on how to apply all the different tools and techniques that I've learnt. I haven't wanted my podcast or posts to be purely just teaching others or telling others the same thing. I want to use it as showing people how I use all these tools myself. It's not about teaching others. Because as I integrate the tools and techniques into my own life, I get greater access to my own inner wisdom. The clearer and greater my access to my inner wisdom, the higher my level of consciousness. And the higher the level of my consciousness, just my being is able to assist others to see their own inner wisdom, hear their own inner wisdom, and to integrate their own patterns and unintegrated emotions. There's so many tools out there. I have often had my head spinning or get overwhelmed sometimes by the amount of techniques and tools because there's never one path, there's never one way. And sometimes what works for us for one challenge in life doesn't work at other times. The tools are all just ways for us to gain access to see our own inner wisdom and our own clarity. Easy. For some, depending on where we're at and how we view life, our perceptions, we will pick up one technique over another. There's many, many, many paths. So I truly believe that we all walk the same path. Not exactly the same, our own path, but we all are going to the same core. I look at it more like there's this core of us all, this spiritual component, the soul, the higher self, the all that is. If you imagine that as the core of the earth, and all of us are just building a tunnel to go in to discover that core. It's the same core for all of us, but each of us are coming from infinite different angles. So we're all going to see things, the same things, but from slightly different perspectives. So again, there's got to be multiple tools for that. And the tools themselves are just to help us, to assist us to make the right choices for us at the time, for what we're ready for. There's no one tool for everybody. So my podcast is less about teaching people what to do, less about tools, but just showing you that, like everybody else, I'm borrowing my own tunnel towards this inner core. And the only advantage of getting to the core before someone else is that you then can turn around and assist others and be of more assistance to help others. So I'm reflecting on my last week. In fact, this has happened two or three times over the last month. I often think that life and our progress, there's a lot of spirals. When you get into quantum physics, when I think when you get into even the universe, cosmology, not that any of these are my topics, but I've just noticed a few posts lately on some of the groups I follow talking about spiral patterns. And I've often told clients for different explanations over the years about progress, it's like a spiral. And sometimes with a spiral, it can seem like we're heading back down, though we never actually get back as low as what we were. But it sometimes can feel like we're backtracking back down to an old problem. And that's the case. Sometimes when we have a tool, we get better, we feel lighter. When we have breakthroughs and let something go, we feel lighter, have a more expansive, everything feels great. But then more challenges come because it's the challenges that enable us to examine and discover these unseen patterns that are running our life, the unseen beliefs that run our life. They're reflected to us and mirrored to us via the circumstances in our life. They're all clues. So by learning to read at the outer experience in our life, we can gain access to what might be inside us giving us issues. So it's like a spiral, and sometimes we can't all achieve complete healing or completion of something at once. Sometimes we'd fritz the system. It has to be a gradual process. Sometimes we do completely change or address something in one go. But often we, like school, we have to do it in a step-by-step fashion. The school analogy is you can't get someone in grade 1 to solve a problem that someone in grade 12 can solve. And the same goes with our life issues. Sometimes we have grade 12 issues, other times we have grade 1 issues. So we need to use grade 1 tools. When we're in grade 12, that grade 1 tool is probably not going to be very successful anymore. So we have to have grade 12 tools. So just knowing that the tools just help us to walk the path as we're ever going ever deeper into ourselves, into the core. And lately, with what I've been noticing is I've always noticed this. It's like, oh, you have this feeling that, oh, well, everything's easy now. Everything's great. I'm understanding things on such a deeper level. And then, woof, it's like you go back down again and go, oh, here we go again. You don't know everything. It seems like everything's the same. And here we go again, back to the same problem. But it's never quite as bad because now you've got more tools, you've got more experience. It's just challenging you to use the tools you've learned, to use the wisdom that you've learned, and to excavate the problem at a deeper level. The spiral is a bit like when you're going up, you can feel more open, expansive light. Sometimes I feel like, oh wow, now I see everything from such a high perspective, and I get a little probably egoic thing of, oh yeah, I see everything now. It's so great. I know so much more. I'm so smart. And then boof, you get a new challenge and it goes back down again. I've had a couple of these lately, instigated by just noticing patterns in my life and being willing to let them go, even though they don't fully let go. I clearly haven't fully surrendered. There's a pattern I may have talked about before. There's the one pattern I've been working on for a couple of years, even though so many things have changed, so many things have improved. There's this one pattern that I feel underneath it all. Because I often get a lot of blocked doors with some of the things I'm passionate about in life. I often get some blocked doors and go, what's going on here? Is it that it's not my door, or is it that I've got something blocking me with my patterns that's not allowing me access to the door? I always have the two ways of thinking, either side. And yes, I am very aware that I do think that maybe it's not a pattern, it's just that I'm not meant to go that way. That's not my path, or it's not time. And I do have a pattern of a very impatient child that wants everything now. So it can be life's way of just stopping the impatient child within me from getting something too soon that I'm not ready for. Because left up to my inner child, it wouldn't care. It would just want to have it now, and to hell with the consequences. But the infinite wisdom of the universe is not allowing me to go there now. So my question is it that it's just not my time? I still have something else to integrate and go to, which is fine, or is it a pattern or a block? So for the first time, because I've been debating this for years and doing my own therapy on it, and then I decided to go, well, it's okay. I think for the first time, I don't know why I never thought about it before, but I thought it's quite okay to be ignorant about my own pattern. If I have a pattern and I can't see any way around it, I just keep staying there, and despite the fact I'm willing to look at it and it's not changing, I'm willing to be ignorant to my pattern. Poof, down I go into a bit of down to a spiral. So it gave me a clue that something I said, that willingness to just say, it's okay if I'm ignorant to it, then up come more stuff. And I feel like my body's been expressing this in numerous ways. I said this has happened a couple of times because I also feel that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, has got me doing a second job. And I found myself in this second job getting a bit stressed and noticing my own acute stress response, noticing how the acute stress response changes my cognitive abilities, my ability to think, my ability to process. I've noticed it how I could get cranky if I'm overloaded. And it's made me just stop and think because my whole intention is to be able to live 100% from my soul and my inner knowing. And it's like, universe has put me in a position doing something a little bit out of my comfort zone where I get so absorbed that I sometimes forget to put my principles into practice. Of course, I do go home, I do all my meditation, I do my yoga, I do all my mindfulness and breath work. And I'm aware of this. And I go, okay, I see the pattern. I see I need to work on this. So it's given me a challenge to not get caught up in a new circumstance that just can knock me off balance. So my challenge has been to address this new, not easy to control, new job because things come up all the time and put me out of my comfort zone. So I've got to try and stay in touch with my own inner peace, my own inner wisdom. And I have noticed dramatically that a couple of times when I've got quite stressed, I've walked away and just touched my heart, breathed in and out, gone back after my lunch break and said, okay, I'm just going to tune into my higher self. Higher self, just let me get through the day, just help me just do the most important things I need to do and just help me do it with grace and ease and flow. And to my amazement, after having stressful mornings where I couldn't think straight and I was feeling a bit overwhelmed, of course I noticed the overwhelm in my body, I recognize it. Then after asking this and just slowing down, I saw my whole afternoon, which I thought was going to be stressful, just complete itself quite easily. And I remember going to work one day thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be so overloaded today. I don't even know where to start. And I did this principle again. And then about 4 in the afternoon, I went, oh my goodness, I've actually finished an hour early and I'm feeling good. And I cannot believe this stressful day ended up going so easily. So I've put into practice these tools of tuning into my higher self and just asking it to guide the day, try and help me go through flow and do the most important things without getting too stressed to it, try and keep my inner peace no matter what. So I'm definitely getting better at it. But I do notice that it comes up. It does throw me into these stressful situations. I've got to be reminded again. So I'm getting better at it. But a whole bunch of things all happened at once the end of last week. And I could feel myself getting a bit overloaded and stressed. There was things outside of work, my trying to coordinate a few things with my somatic counseling. I was like, whoa, just so many things happening that my brain was it was just too much. And a friend just said, yeah, just take the weekend off. Just don't do anything. And I thought, you know what? I'm feeling tired, overloaded. I think that's a good idea. No work, nothing over the weekend. And then my sinuses started playing up and they just wouldn't let me think straight anyway. So I've actually taken most of the week, I've just taken it nice and easy. And I've looked at this, the whole sinus irritation, I've looked at as it is a response, my body's response to allowing myself to examine a pattern. And I truly believe the sinus is just getting rid of some emotions and getting rid of some energies. And that's the way I look at it. So I've just allowed myself rest, allow it to be there, and just letting my body purge some of these energies that come out. Because when I do the somatic counseling work, when I'm assisting others, when they cry or yawn, like any release of anything is actually releasing energy that's trapped in the body. Because when I'm doing this work, whether it was fascia work or whether it's the somatic counseling work, Yeah, I'm looking for sighs. I'm looking for yawns. I'm looking for hot, cold, trembling, shaking. Um, it can. I also warn people after, like after the fascia work, or even after the counselling, just to say, sometimes people have, pee a lot more, or poo a lot more. Like you could. I had one. I've been told that people have. Yeah, their perspiration can get smellier and sweatier, and they can need to go to the bathroom more often because they're often just releasing the stuff that we're letting go of. Any energy medicine technique always tells you to drink a lot more water afterwards so the water can help flush out the toxins because it's all about releasing what the body no longer needs. And these energies sometimes need to be flushed out. Sometimes they come out in the form of an illness or a symptom. And that's the way I've looked at my sinus this week. Just, I asked a couple of questions because I noticed my body change as soon as I sort of tried to surrender. Oh, I tried to surrender. I did my, I was willing to surrender, I should say. I was willing to surrender some of these big patterns that I noticed. And there was another pattern that I noticed as well. It was like, oh my goodness, I've always got this pattern that feels like it's pushing a boulder up a hill. And I thought to myself, what if I just let the boulder go? It doesn't matter. Just let it go. Because I thought, why am I pushing it all the time? And then I realized, there's a little pattern in me that doesn't believe that my inner wisdom, my soul, spirit is ever going to help me. I've got to do it myself. I thought, now that's an old pattern, a very old ancient pattern within me. And I do recognize it from being in my mother and possibly even my grandmother. So it's definitely an ancestral pattern of pushing boulders up hills because we think no one's going to help us. So I just kept telling myself, what if I let the boulder go? And my little pattern just couldn't comprehend what that would be. But I'd be willing to go, okay, we can let that boulder go. It's okay. What if it just, what boulder goes? Just let it go. My little pattern is struggling with that, but it's willing to give it a go. It just can't comprehend not pushing the boulder. And as I was thinking that, again, the sinus issue started. So I can't help but think this really old pattern is just coming out in this way. And so every time I clear my sinuses, I'm quite happy to say I've just let go of so much old stuff that's no longer within me. I've been saying that about things, all sorts of things, people coughing, sneezing. Some people cough and go, oh, they just let go of something. And that's the way I view a lot of these symptoms. Of course, sometimes we do need medication. Sometimes we need doctors if things get bad. But generally, what I'm doing with myself is if it doesn't get that bad, I'm just looking at it as, even if I do need to get help with it, because having to have assistance is all part of letting go and releasing. It's, we take help where we need it. So sometimes when we're on this path, when we're burrowing our tunnel towards our center and our core, it can sometimes feel we're on this path, especially the further we go, that we shouldn't have problems, we shouldn't have issues, we should know it all. But we never know it all. We're not going to know it all unless we get to the core. Then we might know it all. Or we might find that there's somewhere further to go then, but I'll worry about that when I get to the center. I have this, I already know and always know that whenever I get this little feeling within me that, oh yeah, I know so much now. I'm so much closer to the center that I know that that's usually not too far before the next downward arc of the spiral to the next challenge. Because life is just these series of challenges. And then as we get more tools, hopefully it gets easier. Though sometimes the deeper we go, it can get, we are actually challenged a lot more. But our challenges are to forge the strength of our soul, to show us just what our true strength is, which I understand is easier said than done when you're in the midst of a challenge. I've been known in the midst of a challenge to think that wasn't very helpful. But when I look at the bigger picture and I look back later, I understand the truth of it. But when you're in the midst of something very challenging, you just got to take one step at a time, stay as present as possible, and just use the most appropriate tools needed at that particular moment that can help. And the good thing is, the more work we do, we generally, if we stay with it, stay mindful and don't get too entangled in our own emotions and thoughts, we often then see how temporary it is, how we pass to the next level, that things just sort of ease and let go. I'm always amazed at how panicky my thoughts can be and how important something is. And if I wait a little longer, or even the next day, and I go, wow, that fear, that urgency is not there, yet my life is exactly the same. It shows me the truth that our thoughts and emotions aren't always accurate. And sometimes just learning to that pause, having a pause and a bit of space between the sense of urgency, the situation and action can be so beneficial. I'm doing my best because I have this little pattern that likes to push boulders up hills, because it sometimes believes that spirit or my inner self is not going to help me, even though I've had a lot of evidence to the contrary, but I still have this pattern nonetheless. So I think I've forgotten what I'm about to say now. Anyway, I have this pattern that I'm trying to allow to let go of the boulder. I'm allowing myself and trying to surrender more and more to the fact that it's our acknowledgement and willingness to experience the unpleasant emotion, situation, sensation, and then turning it over to our higher self is the most important act. And sometimes it's easy to do with little things, but harder for bigger things, or vice versa. Sometimes it's easy for the bigger things and harder for the smaller version of problems. And I sometimes catch myself struggling to do this process of surrender because it's tricky. It's very simple in theory. But I love to be willing to surrender, but sometimes I catch myself taking it back. That's that little pattern pushing the boulder up the hill. It's like I'm willing to let it go, but then it wants to just grab that boulder right back again just in case. But then I'm willing to let it go, and then I'm grabbing it again. So I'm going to continue to keep being willing to let that boulder go. And hopefully there'll be a day when I do, and the boulder can just roll down the hill. Or as a friend told me recently when we were talking about this in our Wednesday group, that perhaps I'll find that spirit or some other force will just lift the boulder up, or it's not actually needing to move anywhere anyway. It might be being pulled the other direction. Either way, it doesn't matter. I will continue my active surrendering, because surrender is one of those constants that you'll find in many tools, and it's a tricky one. Anyway, that's my thoughts for the week. I hope you have a great week. Happy tunneling towards your own inner core, and may you feel the joy and the peace that comes from accessing your higher self and inner wisdom. May you experience more of that than you do the struggle and pain of outer circumstances triggering patterns. Till next week, bye.